Welcome to the Sharp Way Show. So happy that you are with me this evening. It's a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And yes, you got to talk to me yet again, my mug. I appreciate it. I know some of you saw me earlier today. I am back. But today, I have a very interesting show today. I'm talking about kind of our health, which I don't always chat about. But for myself, it's been important. Some of you know my specific journey here or there where I've gone. And I have a very special doctor, and a doctor whose mission is to literally reverse obesity and reverse diabetes. So this should be a very interesting conversation. Please feel free to reach out, which is as many comments or questions as you want. The man himself, Dr. Tro Kalayjian. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to, be here with a fellow like-minded fellow human who's passionate about getting people healthy, getting people more free, more happy, more healthy. I'm just happy to be here. Happy to talk, happy to shoot the shit if I can curse,
There we go. All you want. Drop F-bombs. I don't care. All good. Yes, I love it. Absolutely all good. Most people who have been following me know that my story, that I'm a big fan of the keto lifestyle in general, right? I'm a big fan. And people don't know I've been on it for 13 years. And long time. And it has become normal for me, right? For what I've done. But my story is not a positive one in that the beginnings, I was in a very bad place in my life where everything was collapsing for me. My business was collapsing. My daughter was in a hospital ready to die for heart surgery. My mom had just been diagnosed with cancer. My wife had packed up and moved into the hospital. And I was all of a sudden a single dad. And the world for me was ending. And I was literally, as I know you often mention, I was using food as a drug. I was eating my feelings. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. So I was using food as a drug. And I was eating, a full pizza and a 2-liter of Coke for lunch every day and thinking, that's normal. It's fine. That's what everyone does that, right? I was believing that. And I got so big that
that's the worst part, Larry. Everybody does that. No, go ahead.
There we go. Yes. So, well, the other issue is and you bring this up also, there was no support structure for me. I couldn't tell my friends what I was doing because I was embarrassed and ashamed. So I couldn't tell them. So there was no one to tell me, dude, what are you doing? Right? Stop. There was no one. And my wife was gone. She was living in the hospital. So my wife couldn't even say, look, what are you doing? She was completely worried about my daughter's health. So I put on so much weight that I actually couldn't fit into my suits to go back to work. So I thought, how in the world do I fix this? So I thought, I'll go low carb, no carb. I'll do that. That'll be my way. And that was actually my beginning. And I was fanatic for the first couple of months. I dropped like 40 pounds. I mean, insane amount of weight I dropped. And I kept most of it off. And I've kept my weight pretty much the same for about 13 years, give or take. I'm 5'11". People think I'm taller because I'm cool, but I'm only 5'11". And I hover around 190, 195. That's about my weight. I hover in that area. That's where I am, and I'm pretty happy with that. So that's my story. You have a different story, though, don't you? Yours is very different than mine.
Look, I'm going to tell you, my story starts when I was 13. I come from a family of people. My family suffered with obesity. Everybody was overweight. Everybody had diabetes, aunts, uncles, heart disease. Okay, everybody suffered, and we just couldn't figure it out. I remember being 8 years old, going with mom to Weight Watchers. I remember this. Okay, wow. Mom struggling with weight. I remember when mom took fen-phen, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So I remember when mom took fen-phen, and so I come from this, my parents came here to this country with nothing. They're the American dream. They came with nothing. They worked 2 full-time jobs. They hustled, and they went to college, had 3 kids. They came with nothing.
And at least one of them became a doctor.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they came with nothing. And the thing is they didn't have time to sort of dig into food, figure out what's what. They didn't have the time. I mean, it's just, this is the food here. Why would you even question
it? But not even time. I mean, like you said, they wouldn't question it. Why would they, right? We got food now. We should be happy. Let's eat. We got some food. Let's be happy. Let's eat.
Exactly. It had the AHA marker. It fit on the food pyramid. I mean, they just didn't even ask questions. So we grew up in the American, even though my parents are ethnic and, we grew up in the modern food environment, right? McDonald's occasionally, otherwise, home cooking, a lot of boxed foods, cereal, Kellogg's, whatever. And what
But
happened
you
was,
struggled though. Like you struggled.
oh,
with
8 years
food.
old, I was chunky. I remember being in third grade, and I was a reindeer standing around in a play, a winter play. I was 8 years old, and I was running in place in this play, and they videotaped me. And I mean, I didn't think anything of it until like 2 weeks later when they played this at lunchtime. It was a snowy day, whatever. They put our winter play on the big screen, and there I am. I had gynecomastia. That's a fancy way of saying man boobs, right? Flopping around as I'm running in place. And I remember to this day who the lunch lady, all the kids were laughing, which I didn't care about. I really didn't care about. I was like, you know what? I get it. It's funny,
Right.
What killed me was the lunch lady who laughed at me. That killed me.
Wow. You still remember that?
The lunch lady was laughing at me. Anyway, that's my life. I mean, look, I was a happy kid. I had friends. I played sports. I was always fat, always fat. And then when I was 13, I go to my doctor. Okay. I go to my doctor, and this is what happens. He puts me on a scale, and at 13, I'm the weight I am right now. Okay.
Wow.
It's roughly about 210 pounds or so. Okay.
Wow.
And he says, you're fat. You're going to be like your parents, right? You're going to be like your brothers who were, edging on 300 pounds at the time. And I remember he had me sitting in that waiting room for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And I was like, this motherfucker just called me fat.
Yep.
Told me I'm going to be like my parents. And he has a TV and chairs in his waiting room. He could have put a fucking treadmill and dumbbells. I remember that, right? Yes. I was like, this guy's, telling me what to do, and he's not enabled me in any way. In fact, he's prevented me. I could have been home playing. I could have been running outside. I remember thinking,
absolutely,
what a douche face this guy was, And so I walked out of there, and I didn't eat for a month and a half. Didn't eat. I had problems.
So you went from being overweight to being anorexic.
I legit was anorexic. Right. And I remember at that point, I was like, I'm going to show this douche face. I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to be better than him. Okay. I'm going to change the way they're doing this. They can't just do this to people. I remember thinking this at 13. So that's my primordial ooze. And, I
love the idea because people have told me before, and I struggled to get this, but you get this completely. Obviously, I didn't get it. I always thought things like anorexia and overeating were the opposite. They weren't related at all, is what I thought, because they're opposite, right? But eating disorders are eating disorders. They're both eating disorders.
Oh, let me tell you. So eventually I ate, and I turned to veganism for a bit, which just crushed my body at a time when I was growing. A time when my brain was still growing, my body was still growing. But that's what was healthy. Like, just eat a bunch of plants and go run. And so I did that. I had a 1-year reprieve of obesity, and then it just came back. Okay. It just came back, slowly 10, 20 pounds a year for the next basically 15, 20 years. Right. So college, med school, right. 10, 15 pounds a year. I would just gain. And, but I had an intense passion to be a healer, to be in healthcare.
But at one point you come to a point where you're a doctor.
Yep.
And you're over 300 pounds.
Yeah. So fast forward through residency, internal medicine residency. And remember, I have like this inspiration. I want medicine to be great. Right. This is what brought me there. I wanted to do good. I want to say that, I was inspired to learn. I was inspired to learn, and I was inspired that my knowledge could help people and my ignorance would hurt people. Right. I still believe this day. And so you find yourself at 350 pounds, and my wife, I'm a 350 pound doctor. The other doctors at Yale where I trained are like, in the Yale system, they're like, hey, why don't you just count your calories? Maybe you're depressed. And I'm taking depression screens. Like, maybe I'm depressed. I'm not depressed, and I can't figure it out. And my wife, we're pregnant with 1 kid, 2 kids, again, 10 pounds a year. I'm just putting it on.
Right.
And, we're thinking about having a 3rd kid. And she's like, and this is roughly 8-9 years ago, she's like, are you going to die? And she played me. My wife's an attorney. She's like, look, Tro, you're a smart guy. And she knew I scored like very well in my board exams or whatever. She just was playing me. She's like, why can't you just figure this out? You figured out what happened with her father. I figured out, other diagnoses that, others had missed. And, she totally just played me. She's like, you can figure this out.
She said, you do it for everybody else, damn it, do it for yourself, right?
Yeah,
you do it for everybody else.
Bingo.
Figure it out for yourself.
Bingo. Yep. So that's when I was like, okay, what would I do if this was a drug for pneumonia? I said to this is exactly the thought I had. What would I do? I would go to the head-to-head studies and I would see what does best. And then you go to the head-to-head studies and you read about, Atkins, basically all the trials that have ever been done, dating back to Atkins, comparing low carb to low fat. Low carb did better. And I'm like, what the F? Like the food pyramid says carbs. The American Medical Association says carbs. Everybody says eat carbs. The American Cancer Society says carbs. American Heart Association says carbs. I'm like, wait, well, hold on. The biggest thing that plagues America right now is the obesity epidemic. And every single interventional trial, the low carb arm does better. I'm like, this can't be. So the minute
this is the part that I like about this, right? The story that I love about more than anything is that you're self-taught. Now, most people will always say, well, he probably learned it in medical school. They taught him in medical school. That's where he learned medical school. And you're like, no, I had to read. And if I remember right, you read over 300 books. Is that accurate?
Yeah, bingo. So at that point, when my wife challenged me, I just was like, I'm going to master this. Like I'm an avid reader. Like I'm the kind of doctor that just, I want to be up to date, more up to date than everybody. I want to read more than everybody. I want to know more than I'm an idiot when it comes to this kind of stuff. Okay. I just want to perform at the best that I can. Because again, I'm driven. My ignorance will hurt somebody. I vehemently believe my ignorance will hurt somebody. So, So the thing is you go, and I don't want to, there's very tribal issues in medicine, and we've seen that over the last few years. But I didn't realize how tribal it was. So I was like, let me just read it all. So I read the vegans, I read the low carb people, I read all sorts of the Mediterranean. I'm just reading everybody. I want to know what the thought leaders are thinking, and then I'm going to their references. So basically, imagine, at 300, it's probably in the high 200s, closer to 300 books, right? Diet books of every kind you can imagine.
They come out every year.
Yeah, they basically multiple times a year. And and I read, the obesity textbooks, at least, 3 textbooks on obesity, and I got certified in obesity medicine. I'm like, okay, at this point, let me just go to the conferences, take the board exam and get certified. And it's just then if you think critically, about how trials are done, how trial design is done, if you think a little bit critically.
Hold on. Before you go there, there's an emotional aspect I want to touch because a couple of my viewers now put some comments up. Let me grab a couple of comments because they're right there with you. Jean says, I was anorexic as a teenager. Now I'm obese. Obviously, I still have a problem with food. And this is the piece you talk about, right? The idea that, and again, this is what surprised me as a layman. I always thought anorexia and overeating are completely different. I was obviously incorrect, but I believe that. And I think most people think the way I thought, like they're not related when they clearly are related. It's a relationship. And you bring this up all the time. It's a relationship with food.
So let's go back. So if you look, like, what is the chronic insult, right? The chronic insult is high inflammatory processed food, right? And inundated with it. Now that leads either to weight gain or a fear of weight gain. Okay? So either you're gaining weight, it's bad for your health, or you fear it because you see how your relationship to food, you don't like it. And so how do you exert control? The easiest way to exert control is to not eat.
Right.
So, and then not eating, this is where it gets really tricky. Not eating actually initially, right? It's fasting. It makes you ketotic and it makes your hunger go down. And then that mental state, the ketones are used by the brain for fuel. It's a very enticing place for somebody with mental instability, right? Because the mood stabilizes, the mood rate. And so in anorexia, they just want to stay there. But what happens is they stay there to the point of malnutrition, stress hormones go up. And then when the stress hormones kick in, now they're more hungry again. So, So now they're eating again, and they don't want to eat because they want to be ketotic and they want to have a stable mood. And so it's it's all based in this, concept of body image and mental health and weight stigma. With obesity, I mean, the struggle is just in the opposite way, where you're actually not stopping the eating. You're just eating, feeling shameful, guilty, modern processed food inflamed, and you're just stuck. They're both stuck in this cycle. And at the key part of it, if you look at most of eating disorders, it didn't exist. There was no eating disorders. I mean, I don't want to say there's no, but very little eating disorders before modern food. And Agnes Ayton, if you're interested, if you're looking at this, look up Agnes Ayton, and she wrote a great paper on this, the blind spot in the Western diet.
Can you spell that last name?
Ayton.
Thank you.
Yeah, Agnes, Ayton, the blind spot in the Western diet. And she talks about the relationship between obesity, bulimia, binge eating, and anorexia. And, she has I think she really hits the nail on the head there. But yes, they're absolutely related. And here's the thing is that the bottom line is most people, right? Most people who've yo-yo dieted, struggled with weight, right? You have to understand, it's like years of psychological trauma. Here I am spilling out my guts, talking about when I was 8 years old and the lunch lady laughing at me. Clearly, there's like some psychological impact to this. And now imagine a lifetime of gaining weight, struggling with weight, being unable to maintain weight loss, right? There's a lot of psychological issues, emotional issues that are very apparent. And you could see it right away. Like, the other day, I had a flat tire in my car, and my wife's like, "Hey, you got a flat tire." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you, Ro." I wouldn't have caught that. I went and took care of it. I was grateful, gratitude. I fixed it, and, when it comes to pizza, Ro's like, "Hey, you don't want to eat that pizza." I'm like, "Screw you, leave me alone."
Right.
Like,
yes. Absolutely.
I'm going to eat more pizza now. Right. I would never say like,
yes,
don't tell me what to do. I'm going to drive on my flat. You can't tell me. I'm a grown man. Like,
right.
So very,
no, you, the part you bring up, which I love, is you bring up the idea of shame. You bring up the idea of guilt, that people actually have that connection. But you also bring up the idea of deprivation. These are feelings that people have that most people think, you see it. There seems to be two sides now. Side number one is attack people who are overweight, call them names, they're lazy, they're bad. That's side one. And side two is what you said. Everybody's fat's wonderful and beautiful and it's great and don't bother me. And it's almost like there's no middle ground saying, no. There's an issue here. Can we deal with it? Yeah.
So here's the problem. Okay. The problem is the current modern medicine says it's your fault. You got to do it. You get, you're a terrible person. These people who have intense shame and guilt, what does shame and guilt do? Right. So they have an emotional issue with food. They have a psychological issue with food. They have learned helplessness, all or none thinking, I messed up. I'm just going to, keep eating this way and I'll worry about it next week. They're always starting Monday. Next Monday is going to be the new diet. They would never do this with anything else they advocate for. They wouldn't treat their money this way. They wouldn't treat their cars this way. They don't treat their family this way. So there's a big barrier to them succeeding, and it's an internal barrier, but there's an external barrier. Imagine you reached out for help, like with a flat tire. My wife told me about my flat tire. Imagine I called AAA, and AAA was like, "Listen, Tro, you're a terrible driver. Just pump more air into your tire than you let out, and here's a bill for $200." Right? Like, this is the modern medicine equivalent. Like, hey, I have obesity. I have a problem. What can I do about it? I have weight to gain. It's like, well, just go like eat less, move more, and you got to do better and give me your $50 copay. So the problem is that we have better support for our cars. We have better support for our bank accounts. Our bank accounts have apps that tell us how we're doing in real time, right?
Yes.
You're doing in real time. You could check things. You could cancel subscriptions right in a second, right? But when it comes to our diet and when it comes to our lifestyle, it's like we're living in the 1980s. Let's track calories, like just this freaking nonsense that's never helped.
There's something else you brought up too, which I like, right? You bring up the idea that anyone can get educated, that there's not an excuse to not get educated, but that for most people, education's not enough, right? There are some people that could just read the book and they'll be fine. But a lot of people, that's not enough. So you can get the education, that's wonderful, but you got to go to somebody to get what you say, insight and biofeedback. That this is what most people really need to make that next step. Am I off here?
Honestly, I think most people just need education, right? Most people just need education, right? They need to know that they have a distorted relationship to food, right?
Okay.
If you have been yo-yo dieting your whole life, if you desperately want to lose weight and you haven't, right? Why is that? There's a reason for that, right? So they need they need insight. It's not education. They need insight.
Insight. That's what I was saying. Yes. They need
Right?
insight. Yes.
Once they have that insight, right? It's game over, and that's easy, right? All you have to do is connect the dots for a patient, right? That, hey, wait a second, you treat your car better. Your emotions are manipulated when it comes to food. They're not when it comes to your car. Look at my wife. She said, go fix your flat tire. I was like, oh my God, thank you, honey. She says, go fix your diet. Don't eat that pizza. I'm flipping out.
Right.
Right.
Well, there's another piece though, right, that I bring up. When I was in the Marine Corps, and when I was in the Marine Corps in intelligence, we talked about interrogation techniques, right? And one of the things they would say is, what you're trying to achieve, what you're not trying to achieve, all those type of things. And they gave us a video once of a gentleman who was an Army officer who was actually he was captured during the Korean War. And they interviewed him like a couple years later in the 80s when they interviewed him, from the 50s when he got captured. He said, remembers when he got captured, he got interrogated by a Chinese intelligence officer. And the intelligence officer said, he was telling him how great communism is and blah, blah, blah. And this officer was the stereotypical West Point officer, wealthy guy from the New England, tons of money, educated, wealthy family. And he says to the interrogator right to his face, look, you're never going to convince me communism is good. He goes, as soon as this war's over, I'm going back home to my beautiful house, my wonderful family, and all my money. You're not going to convince me of that. And the interrogator said, oh, I don't have to. All I have to do is convince you that your way isn't perfect and you'll leave Korea. That's what he said. And I take it in my head always. The goal is not to change the person overnight. The goal is to make the epiphany. Oh my God. Like to your point, I have a problem. Oh, like to really get it. Because I can learn about diet all day long. But if I don't think it's me, I'm just pointing my finger at you. I got to realize, oh my God, it's me. Yeah. I got to work on this.
So it's kind of dichotomous. So it's they have to know. So they blame them. So most people blame themselves for a lack of self-control and discipline, a lack people, right? And it's completely off. They don't know what they're fighting. I see people, they don't know what they're fighting. It's like being blindfolded and saying, well, I just needed to do better at fighting. You have no clue what you're up against. You don't know how your emotions are manipulated, how you're psychologically manipulated. For 30, 40, 50 years, you've been struggling with food. You think like it's a fair fight? No, right? You have like 50 years of failing. You've had 50 years of torture from a Chinese operative, and you think you're going to win? Like,
right. Yeah.
So the thing is it's not so, but you're right. It's how do you get people to understand? It's not that it's, they don't have a responsibility issue. They blame themselves. In fact, they blame themselves so much that it probably prevents them from advocating for themselves. I'll give you a perfect example. Imagine I got a flat tire. I called up AAA and they literally said, you're a terrible driver. You have to pump more air in than you let out. People with obesity are like, yeah, I must be a terrible driver. I don't have good driving skills. You're right. I should be pumping air in and more air than I let out. Right. This is the, sort of frame. I truly believe they're victims. But at the same time, they're the only ones who could change it. Right.
Yeah, it is tough. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping if I could. Everyone, if you're watching right now and you like what you're watching, or if you're listening on the podcast, do me a favor, click that like button if you would. Click the like button. It does matter. It's how I get past those algorithms. They're always bugging me. So please let me get past them. Click that button now. And if you don't like it, why the hell are you watching? Click the like button then. Don't do that. Next, if you had me watch this on Twitter, if you're on Twitter right now watching it, retweet it right now. Don't think. Retweet this moment if you are watching this on Twitter. If you want your chat to get to the front and you happen to be on Larry Sharp's YouTube, that's awesome. You can super chat me. But no matter what you do, if you want to support this show, all those things are good. The thing you can do is head over to my sponsors, theadvocates.org. Theadvocates.org, the advocates for self-government. They support this show. Head on over there, take one of their surveys. There's many of them there. Take whichever one you happen to like. There's all types of shows. Of surveys. Take one of them and share them. If you share it, people will start talking. They're happy. I'm happy. You support the show, and it's free. Lastly, support Dr. Tro. He's actually here giving us good information, an awesome story. Head him over to Twitter and follow him at Dr. Tro. And if you're listening to this, it's Dr. written out, DoctorTro on Twitter. Or just check all his details are in the description. Head over to the YouTube, check his description, check his stuff out. It's awesome to have. Thank you. So I just want to take care of that, Dr. Tro, if I could. So we do a little bit of a housekeeping. I do want to move on to the idea of abuse.
Well, can I make one more just to finish up that
point?
Oh,
please go ahead. Yeah, go.
Yeah. So look, to come back, right? The people with obesity, most of them that come into my office, not one of them wants to be obese, right? Not one of them said, I want my toe amputated due to diabetes. Nobody said, everybody wants to desperately quit. So the thing is there's a barrier between I want to get healthy and what's actually happening in their life. And my job is to take away those barriers, whether it's emotional, psychological, whatever it is, right? They have a desire, okay? And then they have sort of where they're at, right? And I have to walk them to their desire. And most of the time, it's having no insight into how powerful their drive to eat is, knowing how it can change their thinking. I mean, give you a quick example. This is how powerful it is. There are these goats, right? They're goats that literally risk their lives, okay? Risk their lives to walk up a dam, okay? That's basically 500 feet tall, that brick wall, basically that level high, right? They climb these things to go and lick salt, right? They will risk everything to go and lick salt. This is how powerful the drive to eat is. And most people don't respect it, right? Do I think that goat wants to go kill itself? No. Do goats fall off dams every now and then? Yeah, they do. They die, right? The point is that most people don't understand how powerful this drive is. And so that's why I say it's an insight problem. Once they understand what it is they're fighting, it becomes that light bulb moment where it's like, okay, now I know what to do. Now I know what I'm fighting against. Then it's what can I do about it? And once you get to that point, it's easy.
You've said though that you didn't learn that in medical school. What you learned is how to treat the symptoms, but you had to figure out on your own, how do I treat and change behavior? Like that's a critical thing. Particularly in this case, you've also said that eating is at a subconscious, unconscious level, right? And now you got to pull it out of that when someone's just kind of like doing it. I mean, I know many people who don't realize how much they eat, and people say they lie about their eating. They're not lying. They actually don't know because it's just unconscious. They're just eating. They don't even realize how much they've eaten.
Look, let me tell you, if you look at somebody with obesity, right, they will underestimate their caloric intake by 50%. An average doctor will underestimate by 20 to 30%. And a dietitian tends 20%, meaning that everybody is eating without thinking about it. Okay. Just like we pee without thinking about it. We go to the bathroom without thinking about it. We breathe without thinking about it. Nobody's counting breaths in and breaths out. Right. So if you think you can track your food over the long term, you're highly mistaken. Right. So now the thing is if you overeat, you want to eat filling foods. That's it. If I have a problem with portion control, I want to eat foods that fill me up. Right. If I have a problem, with overeating, whatever, I have a stress eating, whatever it is, the first solution is start with eating things that are filling. Right. Start with things that are going to, at least when you're conscious about eating, you're full. So later when you're subconscious about eating or not thinking about it or too stressed out to even think about it, you're not going to eat as much because you're full. It's like if you're going to walk into an all-you-can-eat junk food buffet, do you want a pound of steak before you walk in or a rice cake? No, I want a freaking pound of steak, right? Because then I'm going to be able to say no effortlessly. But if you eat a rice cake before you go into an all-you-can-eat buffet of junk food, you're going to lose. And so that's the problem in our modern world. These people with obesity are like, I'm going to eat less, I'm going to eat less, I'm going to eat less. And it's a toxic mindset because it's actually your body needs more food, right? You need to eat filling food so you don't eat the other stuff. So it's a complete flip 180. It's like the mindset is so key and so critical, and it takes time.
It's very funny you say that. In the mornings, almost every morning, and some people don't know this, but almost every morning I eat about a half a pound of bacon and 4 eggs. And when I eat that in the morning, it gets I get a lot of fat, which is what I like. I often am not hungry for a long time. It does fill me up. And I'm not a big foodie, luckily. I'm not a big foodie. So I don't miss like, oh, I don't have this thing. I'm lucky in that regard. But I eat a lot in the mornings. Oh, not usually I eat later. I usually eat till 11 or 12. But when I eat, I tend to stay full for a long time. I agree with you. I try to eat filling foods that have a lot of fat and protein in them. I do all the time. It's very true. My problem is coffee. That's my problem. Coffee. I try my best to limit coffee, but that one I keep failing at. I'm not doing good at the coffee one.
Let me tell you, look, it took me a while to come off coffee. I mean, I had to switch to decaf, and then, look, I would say it's the last thing for most people to nix. You can use coffee as an appetite suppressant, but I think the biggest thing here, when you're struggling with food, it's just most people, if you yo-yo dieted for years and you've lost weight multiple ways for years, usually you don't need a nutrition plan. You need a behavior plan. You need to just say, okay, what are the foods I need to figure out? What are the places I struggle? And just list them. If you look at any lifestyle, if you look at Larry, your lifestyle right now, the average person has 15 to 25 foods they crave.
Yep.
Okay. They have 5 to 10 places they eat them with about 5 to 10 people they eat them with. So meaning your lifestyle is manageable by about 50 things. So just list them out. What do I struggle with? What are the exact places, foods, people that I struggle with? List them out. And then you could all right, what's a way that I can manage these with more filling foods? Some of them are easy.
This is what I'm doing. See, this is what I love about you, Dr. Tro, is you are both reasonable and unreasonable. You are both. You are unreasonable in that you're like, I don't listen to anybody. They're all full of shit. They're not doing the right thing. You're completely unreasonable in that regard. But you're reasonable when it comes to, you're unreasonable when it comes to your peer group, but you are reasonable when it comes to the person who's in front of you. You're like, how do I get you from, I need to get you to B, you're at A, how do I walk you to B? And that is amazing. One reason why I'm happy that you're here, brother. Thank you.
Well, let me tell you about being unreasonable. This is the thing. Okay. These are the people, and they've affected me, right? I watched my mom get diabetes, go take medications, get gastric bypass. See my brothers struggle with weight. I've seen my own family be affected. We have a pyramid. We have doctors. We have dietitians. We have nutritionists. They failed my family. So this is the truth. They and you know what? Here's the reality. They have failed America. Okay. America's life expectancy is decreasing. Okay. Exponentially versus any other country. We spend more than everybody. Systematically, they failed. We have the worst obesity rates skyrocketing over the last 40 years. So here's the thing. How do you look at any sort of central organization of doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, nurses, and say, oh, you've done great? No, they have failed. They need to be wiped out. They need to start all over. They need to rethink this. If we had a plane, an hour, basically dropping out of the sky, that's how many people's feet are getting cut off. Wow. Okay. There's a plane, an hour dropping out of the sky with people with diabetic foot ulcers getting parts of their body cut off. Right. And how do we not blame it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you don't believe in regulatory capture, you should believe it right now, because people are dying by plane loads every second due to things that are easily preventable. So they got to go. So there's no reason to be reasonable. I'm tired of trying to, I was thinking about, you got me started, Larry, because, people have come.
No, go ahead.
Tro, they're like, Tro, we should work with the AAFP. The AAFP is taking money from Coca-Cola.
Yep.
Okay. There's no way you're going to work with corrupt people. The CDC, just recently, they took this down after I tweeted it 6 months ago that their recommendations for diabetes are diabetics should get 50% of their calories from carbs. So I wrote this, okay, and I called them out, and yeah, exactly. Thank you, Seven. F the AFP, right? But look, here's the thing: they are so wrong and outdated. It's malpractice, right? Yes. And yet they're the ones who set the rules. The AC, right? So like we know there are certain cancers that are avid for cancer. Like cancer just eats up certain cancers, particularly breast cancer. there's a close relationship between diabetes and breast cancer recurrence. So much so that the American National Cancer Institute is testing metformin in preventing breast cancer. And yet the American Cancer Society says limit red meat, limit meat in general, and eat plant-based. I mean, this is just beyond me, right?
Yes.
It's beyond me. And so here's the thing. The reason why I'm unreasonable, and I think it's reasonable to be unreasonable, is because they're beyond the point of, there's no salvage.
Yes.
I cannot take the CDC after Tuskegee, after the 76, flu vaccine that they had to recall, after, COVID, and say, oh, you know what? Let's work within the system. This system is so shot. It's like,
I agree.
Called out.
I'm not fighting you. Let me tell you a couple of comments. People are you got my people commenting all day, which is good. I'm happy about this. Alexander loves you. He goes, love Dr. Tro already. Great attitude, great personality. So you have a fan already. I think he'll be following you. So that's good. So Scott is talking about magnesium. Is this a thing? Obesity is induced by magnesium deficiency.
Yeah.
Magnesium, the chemical reactions that produce energy in the body cannot happen. Is that a real thing?
So yes, so this is the problem. I mean, it's a complicated problem. It's not, obesity is always multifactorial, but so when you have low magnesium, you become basically insulin resistant. In fact, you give magnesium to people with diabetes, their diabetes improves. So 100% there's a relationship between magnesium deficiency, and the problem goes deeper. It has to do with the way so like our crops right now, our plants, they used to be like 50 years ago, they were magnesium rich because the soil had tons of magnesium. The way we've monocropped, there's no more magnesium in the soil, right? So all the nutrients are sort of washed out of these plants. All of our plants, they used to be so rich in minerals, they're very low in minerals. So just about all of the United States is pretty much magnesium deficient. I'm not a big on supplements. That's one of them I take personally.
You just made Scott's day. Scott will put a magnesium comment in my chat almost every day. There's a magnesium comment in my chat from Scott. You just made his day. He's now your best friend. You have a new best friend now.
Yeah, Scott. I mean, look, I mean, it's not as simple as take magnesium and obesity, but it's definitely an aggravator.
Sure. Yeah, I know. I started taking magnesium when I remember back in the day. Do you remember the idea of Dr. Bob Barefoot's coral calcium? You remember that fad from about 20 years ago?
No, I wasn't there for that one. I was probably.
There was a fad about 20 years ago that coral calcium was going to fix your brain, and you would take it and you would grow a new brain and all kind of. It was a big fad. But from that, I remember them talking about taking calcium with vitamin D and magnesium. I still remember that concept.
Yeah.
So to this day, from that fad, I learned to take calcium with magnesium and vitamin D. So I do take that supplement myself. So yes, it was a fad, but it did give me something good from it.
Yeah, I would drop the calcium. Vitamin D3 and magnesium, I'd say is okay. Calcium is probably just making expensive urine and potentially no bueno. So I would drop the calcium unless you got osteopenia. Or, I don't know your medical situation.
I don't have any. No, I don't.
Yeah. So this is like another thing. If you hear something I say, it's not medical advice. Just talk to your doctor.
There we go. That's what he's talking. I love that idea. I love that. Yeah. Yes. But you talk about, again, the idea of reversing those things, which I love that you talk about reversing diabetes, we don't do that. We just treat it. Like we don't reverse anything. We just treat it. And I love that you actually talk about reversing things. I do love that because I told the story earlier today. I had a checkup last year because I ran for office last year. So I always do a checkup before I run for office, make sure my medical records are good and in case someone does it. But I rarely go to doctors. Like I only go to a doctor every 4 years if I run. That's when I go. I don't go to doctors very often. So I went there, and when I check in my stuff, they asked me the woman gives me the form back and says, no, you need to fill out all your prescriptions. And I said, I don't have any. And they went, oh, okay. Then I go to the next person who's going to take me to the doctor's office, right? I guess the nurse or whatever the case may be. She goes, oh, no, you forgot to put your prescriptions in. I said, no, I don't have any. I went, oh, okay. Then the doctor gets my form. Hey, you forgot to put your prescriptions in. They couldn't believe that I didn't have any prescriptions. They couldn't believe it. It was like, this guy must be lying or something. They couldn't believe it. And again, the point I'm bringing up is everybody wants to treat it. You called them, if I remember right, one thing I saw you said that in science, there are very few people right now who are questioning. I think you called them lemmings, if I remember right. I think you actually called them lemmings. Yeah. And I am concerned that that's true because I see it in my own doctors here in Astoria, Queens.
Oh man, come to a good doctor. We're not far, man. We're not far. Look,
I'm gonna drive up to Rockland County. I go up there all the time anyway. I'm gonna go.
look, we're remote, man. We do everything remote. So here's the thing. Let me, a company from Louisiana came to me. Okay, a company from Louisiana. They're really focused on getting their employees healthy, right? I knew I could affect the Larry Sharps who see me on YouTube or whatever, and on interviews, and they're highly motivated. They're accomplished people. And let's say they have weight to lose. You came to me 13 years ago. You would have been the perfect person. Like, I know, as with the military background, that, highly educated, motivated, you're going to win. All I need to do is, be the Chinese torturer for you. Right.
Right.
Yeah. All I need to do is like flick that switch. And once that flicks, once that's it, all you need is a little bit of support and you're good. Right. A couple of labs, maybe a CGM or something. You will see it with your own eyes, the lies they told you. Right. When you see that, hey, wait a second, the oatmeal and the bananas and the raisins that they told me to eat for breakfast, it's sending my blood sugar up to 200. And then, I'm hungry an hour later. When you see that happen, right, then you're like, okay, it's a house of cards. And once you realize that you got to go back and unlearn, rethink, right? Once you do that, right, you're okay. But I knew I could affect people who come to me or inspired by me, whatever, right? But I was like, this company came and said, come help our employees. They're here for a long time. They're good employees. We want to get them healthy.
So they weren't predisposed to liking you. They were not there. They were like, who's this guy?
Yeah, they don't know me. They don't know me. I'm so halfway across the country. And so I didn't know whether I could have an effect. And so what we did was pretty simple. We said, who wants to lose weight, right? Who wants to get off medications, right? And we get like 200 response. Everybody's like, we're desperate. We couldn't see 200 at once. So we just started seeing them in groups of 20, right? And all the same, we're not, everybody's individualized, right? So we find individual problems in each one and we address them, but the message is the same. You can conquer this. You have to understand what you're up against. You have to understand how you struggled before. Your struggles are not the person's next to you. So you got to figure out your own struggles. What you struggle with pizza, you got to figure out pizza. I don't need pizza. I don't care about pizza. You care about pizza. So we got to figure out pizza and you, right? So what we did was we reversed diabetes in their average. They came into me diabetic, 290 pounds, blood pressure of 140, high blood pressure, and we reversed it. Wow. Okay. We dropped their A1C from the diabetic range to not even pre-diabetic range. You dropped it by 1.1. Okay. Which is a big drop. This is more potent while we stopped medications, right? While we stopped, medications. And I posted this cohort of about 100 people now on Twitter. And you can go look it up in my pictures. It's just a beautiful graph of everybody over 3 months, 6 months, a year, losing weight. Okay. Nice. And their blood sugar is going down on average 40 points, right? Which is this is more than, and while stopping medications, their blood pressure went down 17 points while stopping blood pressure medications. Yep. So we dropped their 10-year risk. So we can calculate their 10-year risk of a heart disease from 10% of getting a heart attack to 5%, to 5.5%, which is more powerful than any drug.
Absolutely.
So here's the thing, right? I thought to myself, it has to be, the patient's got to be ready and blah, blah, blah. Everybody's ready. We're not ready. Medicine's not ready. Yes. We don't know how to treat them. We're not ready. They're ready. They've been wanting it their whole life. They'll give their pinky if they know they can, sustain weight loss for the rest of their life. Yep. So agreed. Not that they're not ready. We're not ready. And some people are not ready, but they're not going to come to you. They're not going to be like, yeah, I want to lose weight. No, I'm fine eating bonbons. I'm sitting at home. I'm good. I don't care right now. Absolutely. I can't do it right now. So they're ready. We're not ready.
Let me grab some more comments. William says, I started keto last month in Florida and I've lost 10 pounds since I've returned. It's really quite simple. Cut out carbs and sugars. I'm now 4 pounds away from being in my normal BMI. The biggest threat to my diet now is Klaus Schwab and I eat bugs. Yeah, that's true.
Well, bugs are high in protein, but I agree with you. They're going to make this social credit system and, ban red meat. What they're doing in Netherlands right now with the farmers is just everybody's got
horrible.
It is
Horrible.
really bad. And, it's a look, here's the thing, whether you're a libertarian or not, I happen to lean very much libertarian. There is, whether you're pro-government, anti-government, pro-corporation, anti-corporation, they all don't care about you.
Yes.
Right? They all want you eating bugs. Doesn't matter who it is, right? It's
Yes.
cheap and they can feed it to you. And if they can make you eat it, they make even more money. So yes,
Absolutely.
I'm with you.
Yes.
Sorry,
And
was that too unreasonable?
all good. 100% all good. Absolutely. But let me grab a couple more. A lot of people are popping in. I want to be good to some of the people who've been popping in here or there. Let's see if I can grab one more. Let's see here. Seven asks, when does the campaign start, Larry? And the reason why I brought this up, by the way, is because I'm going back on the road this week. Actually, I'm leaving tomorrow to do a couple stops in upstate New York. I'm crossing the state again because I'm trying to get people to realize we need ballot access for the party next year. So I'm starting my campaign to make that happen for next year. And I always joke when people see me and I say, I survive in the campaign on protein and caffeine. That's how I keep my energy up. That's how I keep my weight down when I have to do 3 or 4 events in a day, walk around a lot, learn stuff, keep my brain power up. It's all about protein and caffeine. That's why I brought that up. And that's, I think, why he's bringing that up. But I think that, in my view, when I found other people who are around me, they say, Larry, I was going to do the thing, fix the thing, whatever the thing was, but then I got stressed, right? But then I got stressed. So then I couldn't do it. And my piece is, I want to do the thing when I'm most stressed, because then it's easy. Once I do it, and that's my Marine Corps, right? My Marine Corps training I was Marine 30 some odd years ago, right? But I still remember that training. You do training under the most stressful circumstances, and everything else is easy. So I want to do it when I'm the most stressed. And your point earlier you brought up, you said that people who are either anorexic or some other eating disorder, it's a form of control. It has been for me too. I'm guilty of that. When I was at my worst, what I was feeling was I had no control. My life was spinning out of control. I couldn't handle my family. I couldn't protect my daughter. She was dying. I couldn't protect my mom. She was dying. My business was collapsing. I couldn't control anything. I felt like a total loser. I felt like I could control nothing. And controlling my diet, as silly, as small as that might be to someone listening to this, it was something I could control. That I could do it. And then I could see the results and feel like, shit, I'm winning. Okay, I can win again. And that helped me to fix everything else in my life that I had completely just lost control of.
Look, can I tell you, when we look back at people who struggle with weight loss, the number one cause, and I'm going to say this because this is insight that is not published yet. It will be published. 100% of weight regain, okay, meaning gaining weight back, is due to psychological, financial, medical, or any other sort of stress, right? Relationship stress, financial stress, workplace stress. It is due to stress. And if you look at stress and what it is, right, it's basically a comfort deficiency, right? Stress is a comfort
deficiency,
right?
Like
so when you're stressed out, you're uncomfortable, right? It's emotional discomfort or whatever, psychological discomfort. It's discomfort. So when the brain is experiencing discomfort, maybe you're stoic, maybe you're a Marine guy, maybe you're a arrogant doctor or whatever it is, right? Maybe you're just not going to perceive the stress. And so what happens? Your brain is like, I'm going to get awesome, whether you choose to or not. And the easiest way to get awesome is the refrigerator. If it's not the refrigerator, it's the alcohol cabinet. It's not the alcohol cabinet, it's the medicine cabinet, right?
Yep.
For anxiolytics and some whatever, right? So those are the ways that people get, relief. And really the way we need to get relief in people is the good old fashioned ways. Exercise, a mental health tool, is a mental health. It is not it is not a calorie burning tool. It's a mental health tool, right? Getting outside and walking, talking to people, talking to your priest, your rabbi, whatever, talking to somebody, some of your family members, that one-on-one talking with good counselors. So, and the other things are just knowing the things that relieve your stress. Right. Having a stress sort of toolbox. So 100% of weight regain, meaning you lost the weight and you gain it back, happens in stressful scenarios, and it can be prevented. Daily exercise is like a stress prevention. It's like an anxiolytic. Okay, consider it like medication. Okay. You are getting your anxiolytic every day. And if you don't, what do you think is going to happen when you're stressed out? You don't have a way to relieve that stress. You're going to turn to Domino's and Dairy Queen, whatever, tornadoes, whatever they call them.
Absolutely.
And if you're not going to turn to that, you're going to turn to Johnny Walker and Jameson.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
If it's not that, yeah.
Missy says, I'm in anorexia recovery, dangerously close to relapse. I have a therapist, psychiatrist, and family doctor, but I've struggled with this for 35 years. I'm struggling like hell since my fiance died. So, yeah, that's what you're just talking about, the stress that she's under, exactly what she's struggling.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear about your fiance, and my condolences to you. And all I can tell you is, our brain is like any other organ. I can't treat you, and I think you have a team in place, but what I'd say is your brain deserves solid nutrients, and you can the mental health benefits of sort of being in ketosis, you can get that eating a bunch of steak, you can get that eating a bunch of fats, you can get that eating a bunch of fish, and your appetite will be regulated. So there's a lot of data emerging on ketosis and anorexia. Published was just studied. A couple of case reports have been studied. There's a dietitian. What's her name? I'm gonna bring it up. Oh my God, Hearn, Michelle Hearn, I believe is her name. She's a dietitian who's had anorexia herself. I would go reach out to her. She may have great insight for you. But ultimately, your brain needs to heal. It needs nutrients. And that's the dilemma here. It needs nutrients.
Well, one other piece, you talked about a support structure, right? And this reminds me, have you ever seen, you've probably seen there's a ton of TV shows, reality shows about people who are morbidly obese, right? They can't get out of the room. My 400-pound life, my 600-pound life, a bunch of shows like that, right? And there's that very popular TV doctor, Yazarian, I forgot his name, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
The popular doctor in Houston.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
That guy, right? So he always says, whenever the person comes in, he always says literally, who's your enabler? He says that all the time because for these people who are that big, there's always someone enabling them, someone giving them the food because people can't get out of bed, right? So someone's giving them the food. So what I'm saying is I like that Missy's saying. Missy has a support structure that's not enabling her. But a lot of us do have a support structure that's not really supporting us. That's actually saying, oh, don't worry about your dumb diet. Have a little more food. Oh, don't worry about that. Here, I made you this cake. Almost like the mom trying to be good to us and giving us food as a reward or as love or anything like that. And I feel it too, right? I have 2 daughters. I want to give them the goodies, right? I feel it. I don't because I know it's bad, but I still feel it. Like I want to give them the ice cream because it's good and it tastes, and I'm the good dad, right? So I think there's a lot of that too, right? People in your world who aren't helping you, who are actually enabling you.
100%. So we actually do a domestic abuse screen on every patient. Right?
Domestic abuse.
Yeah, we do it, which includes like this subtle questions about hostility in the home, right? So, which includes subtle questions about hostility in the home. Let me tell you, this doesn't happen. Like it doesn't happen. It can happen in isolation, but obesity spreads in social networks. So if you look at obesity over the last 50 years, it's like a virus. Okay. Meaning like the people that are obese, right? Just as you said, what are they going to do? Right? The people who are using food to treat whatever, they're going to ask you to come out to treat food with them, right? They're going to want to include you. They're going to celebrate with you. The foods they eat, they're going to bring to your house, right? So obesity spreads in social networks. And so your friends literally dictate sort of what happens to you. And if you look at how it spreads sort of over the Framingham Index, you see that, the obesity sort of takes over. It spreads like a virus over 50 years. And there are these small nuggets of like thin people that also sort of congregate together. And those are probably like the local CrossFit gyms, the local health clubs, and right, the people who are like, we can't keep doing this. The people who listen to David Goggins and are getting up at 5 a.m. and taking care of themselves. Like
right.
So there are these like small pockets. So it's 100% our social networks have an influence over us because they make our food environment, right? They literally make a
Yes.
food environment up. And the worst part about it is if you struggle with that relationship with food, our society doesn't understand it. If you have a problem with alcohol, everybody knows it. You tell them, I got a problem with alcohol. Nobody's like, here you go. Here's a beer.
Right.
They're going to actually understand that issue. And they're going to say, well, we shouldn't really do that to him. We're triggering him. Well, let's think about him a little bit, or her. But when it comes to food, the minute you're dieting, your family's like, why aren't you eating the cake that I made you? Like,
right. Yes.
I'm a food addict and I was 350 pounds. You know, I am not freaking eating that cake because, you know, it doesn't stop with your piece of cake. And I don't care about your cake. And your cake is full of crap ingredients anyway. So take your cake back. I love you, but your cake sucks.
Well, I don't go that far. I just let everybody know I've been on a keto lifestyle forever. So whenever they do give me cakes or cookies, I go, thank you so much, then I don't eat them.
Yeah.
But yes.
I'm like, look, I'm pretty much allergic to sugar. It makes me hungry. It makes me feel unwell. That's what I say. But
there we go.
You get the unreasonable side of me, you know?
Yeah, I know. I love it. It's all good. It's all good. So let me do, if I could, a little bit more, a little bit of admin here. Guys, if you like what you're seeing, please click that like button. I know I asked you before. I'm going to ask you again. If you haven't clicked it yet, please click it. I need to get around these algorithms. The like button matters tremendously. Please click a like wherever you are. If you happen to be watching this on Twitter, then retweet this right now. More retweets, also the better. Let people know what you're watching. It does matter. If you're on YouTube, you can support the show directly by giving me a super chat. Your chat goes right to the front. And I'll even the crazy stuff I'll read off because it's super chat. I'll do it. Now, but not just that. If you want to support the show in general, support my sponsors, the advocates.org. They are the advocates for self-government. If you like the idea of that, which I know I do, and you like this show, you go there, take any one of their many surveys or the world's smallest political quiz, and the human respect test, also great tests. They're fun, they're interesting. Take them and then share the results so that other people will be watching. Other people will be seeing and having conversations. The more you do that, the happier they are. It's free. It makes me happy because they support the show. You support the show by giving me 4 or 5 minutes of your time without having to spend a dime. It does matter. And also something else, though. Dr. Tro has come here to help us out, so follow him. You can see all his details in the description and YouTube and also on Facebook if you're there, or just follow him on Twitter. And you'll see what he's doing, and then you'll follow all the stuff. You follow him on Twitter. It's awesome. It's at Dr. Tro. If you're listening to the podcast, it's written out DOCTOR, and Tro is TRO. So I just want to make sure I got some more admin done. Apologies at Dr. Tro. But
you can also, another plug and a shameless plug. Okay,
please.
I see 7 levels is like, where do I get a keto diet from? We have a free app. Okay, what doctor is crazy enough to make an app? We made an app. It's free. It's freaking awesome. There's some paid features if you want to support us. Okay, but there's a free app, Dr. Tro, spelled out. Okay, you can go to any store, get it. You get a free community. There, we have a binge eating hotline, pretty much a binge eating like get help board. We have we have modules on all of medicine. You want to cut through the BS of medicine? We cut through it for you. We make it easy. We have a 7-series module on weight loss, basically with videos, articles, teaching you whatever, everything I wish I had is there.
Right? Yes, there we go.
Everything I wish I had is there. So
yes,
it's there for you. And I tried to make it digestible. So if you want to get it, it's there.
Alexander was laughing, saying that he said, I eat a lot when I eat 4 eggs and a half pound of bacon in the morning. It is a lot. I agree. It is a lot. But I'm able to, if I want to, when my schedule permits, when I'm not that busy, my schedule permits, I'm able to only eat 6 hours a day. I can intermittent fast for 18 hours and only eat twice a day. And I can keep my weight down very low if I do that. So yes, it's a lot, but if I'm only eating twice a day and I'm not snacking, it really isn't that much when you think about it that way. So that's what I try to do when I can.
Let's go through it. A half pound of bacon is like 400 calories. So not that I care about calories. 4 eggs is like 300 calories. So that's about 700 calories. That's like 2 slices of pizza. It's not a lot of food. Would anybody look at 2 slices of pizza and be like, oh my God, I just had a lot of food? What about an egg McMuffin and a hash brown, right? Coffee, cream, and sugar, right? Is that a lot of food? Not really. That's probably more, calories than, 4 eggs and a half pound of bacon. So absolutely. I think, these people's concept of what a lot of food is mistaken. My daughter eats 4 eggs. She's 9 years old. Okay.
Mhm.
She's completely thin. My,
Yep.
my, 6-year-old son eats easy 3 eggs and a half pound of bacon. Okay. And he's paper thin. So I think
Yep.
you're, you know,
Yes.
Joe's on point here. The concept of what, what is a lot of food is off in most people, right?
Yes.
So,
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Yes.
just a heads up. Sorry to put you on
Excellent.
the, whoever that
No
was.
worries. Alexander also asked a question. He says, Dr. Tro, I don't drink coffee, but I usually have a cup of black tea every morning with apple cider vinegar. Is that detrimental trade-off to my health?
Nah, it's fine. That's good. I'll take the apple. I'll just take the tea. I wouldn't even put in the apple cider vinegar. I'll just take the tea.
There we go.
I think tea is a great appetite suppressant. So if you're kind of like, am I really hungry? Am I not? And you do a nice flavored tea, you could just sort of buy yourself an hour. Sometimes you get busy with work and you're like, I didn't even need to eat. Right. So I like water, coffee, tea, seltzer as like let me test if I'm actually hungry or not.
Water and coffee. That's me every day. Water and coffee every day. That's me. Yes. And my sweeteners are usually stevia when I use a sweetener. And sadly, I'm trying to break myself from half and half, but I'm having trouble breaking myself from half and half. My coffee addiction is probably my worst one. When I was on campaign in 2018, I was having so much coffee. I was probably having 9 or 10 cups a day by the end of the campaign. And I was like everyone else. I thought, I can stop whenever I want. So I thought when the campaign was over, I would just stop drinking coffee. And no, I physically could not function. I was going to withdrawal. I had to cut myself back to about 6 or 7 cups a day for like a week or two. And I weaned myself off down to about 3. And it took me time. I never thought I'd be addicted to coffee. I thought that's not going to affect me. Well, yeah, it did affect me.
Yes. With the half and half, what my recommendation would be, drop to the milk for like a week, then drop to skim milk. And then by the time you get to skim milk, you're going to be like, F this, I don't need anything. Right. And then with the coffee, the way to kick that is afternoon, switch to decaf. Right. Afternoon, switch to decaf, and then slowly creep in hour by hour closer with the decaf. So let's say you're doing 3 cups now. The last cup is decaf. Then, do that for a week. Then the next week you do the 2 cups is decaf, the last 2 cups. And then the next week after that, all the cups are decaf. And by the time all the cups are decaf, you're going to be like, screw this.
So that's the way I wean myself. Okay.
Yeah.
You're taking away my sweet treat. Okay. I see how you are, Doc. I got you. Okay.
If that's your choice. If you want to,
No, yes, I'm totally with you. The other piece I want to bring up before we wrap this up is how I guess 2 parts. One of them is the Raccoon study that you've talked about in the past. And I think this is really, a lot of people don't know what this is. And I think if you bring it up, it'll really open the eyes of a lot of people who are watching who don't understand how difficult this is, because you've said, this is probably the unreasonable piece. You've said there's really no way to win this war, right? You're going to be fighting this battle your entire life, because society in modern life is always going to be shoving, pizza at us, or commercials for fat inducing foods, or, sugary sweets, or soda commercials, or beer, whatever. That's always going to be happening. But you think it's really because of our society. So tell me about the Raccoon study.
100%. Nobody, I've never seen, there's a show called Survivor, right? I don't think anybody's ever gained weight on Survivor ever, right?
Right.
And there's a show called Alone, and I don't think anybody's ever gained weight on that show alone, right? And these are shows where you're out in the wilderness for a prolonged period of time, just for the listener who doesn't know these things. But so if you look at the models for obesity right now, it's very complicated, right? The scientists out there in the world and the obesity doctors that don't like me, I'm very much not liked amongst my colleagues, because I think they're incompetent and I think they're abject failures. So they don't like me, and they often, have these big diagrams, at these conferences, where they, ponder if obesity is genetic, if it's a calorie issue, if it's hormones or psychology, commercials, air conditioning, cars. They don't know what's doing it, right? But they know it's there. And so they're all really like not, and they look at their diet trials and they're like, look, nobody does well with diets, so diets don't work, right? So they're confused. So the end result is they're like, we don't know what the cause is. Maybe it's genes, maybe it's environment. We don't really know. And we have nothing to do about it until recently. There's this new drug out that everybody loves. So they're very confused at what the cause is. But, there was a study done, and this was in 2019, and I brought it up in Obesity Week in a question format in a conference. I said, they're all debating what's the cause of obesity. And I raised my hand, and they know, where I'm going to be a jerk to them.
And like, uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah. And I said, well, are you guys familiar, in this conversation of what's the cause of obesity with the veterinarian literature on obesity? And of course they're not, because they don't give a shit. And, they said, what's the study? And I mentioned this study where they found out they were studying raccoons in the cities and comparing them to raccoons in the suburbs versus out in the country. And they found out that the raccoons in the cities were obese, diabetic, had arthritis, had inflammation, and they biopsied into the labs on these raccoons. And then they looked at the raccoons in the suburbs, and they were pre-diabetic and they were overweight, and they had some arthritis, but not much. And out in the country, they had none of that. And
none of it.
They had none of it. And so the veterinarian said, we suspect that obesity in raccoons is due to their access to garbage. And so I asked the researchers if they had read the study about their access to garbage, and I asked them if they knew what is in the urban garbage, what is the dietary composition of urban garbage. And it's 90% processed food, by the way,
right,
and 80% processed carbohydrates, and the remaining 20% is processed oils and fats, right? Processed oils, right? Like safflower and cottonseed and rapeseed oil, these really cheap oils that they throw in processed food.
Right.
So their diet, right? Like the diet, so they said it's access to garbage that makes the raccoons obese, and
that's our food.
That's our food. Have you guys thought of the idea that maybe it's our food that's causing obesity? Maybe it's like our food is addictive food. It makes animals eat to the point of ill health. And they, asked me to quiet down. In fact, they sent an email to me. I saved the email. I should frame it. Would you like a refund, and would you like to leave the conference? Is what?
Wow.
Yeah. Would you like a leave?
Wow.
We noticed that you're not happy here. We noticed that you're not happy here.
You're not one of us. You won't get in line. Why don't you pack your shit and get out of here, because you won't get in line.
Look, I'm abrasive and aggressive. I don't blame them. I'm abrasive and aggressive, but like they got to wake up, man. There's somebody getting a foot cut off every second. There's a plane going down every hour of somebody getting their feet cut off, and we can't just keep doing this shame and blame way of managing obesity. It doesn't work. And the real problem, and I know I'm yapping so long here, Larry, but the real problem is now doctors have a little taste of a medication that is minimally effective, right? And they're going crazy. And look, we've been using, I use meds, okay? I like to take people off meds, but I use meds. We've been using these drugs that they are now using for 5 years. And we know what happens. If you don't fix your life, no drug, no surgery is going to fix food addiction. It's not going to fix a bad relationship to food. Nothing. But the hard work will address food addiction, your relationship to food, nothing. So these drugs and surgeries help, but they're not going to.
You said more than once that medication is not going to change your behavior, right? That's not going to change. And the behaviors we got to change. Right. That's the critical piece. The medication is not going to fix your lack of a social structure if you don't have that, or your lack of your support system if you don't have that. I think it's a valid point. It's a totally valid point. I love that you're saying it. It makes so much sense, which I love what you're saying it. So yes.
Look, so the biggest thing here is, these drugs and surgeries. I'm not saying don't get surgery. I'm not saying don't try a drug. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is don't let them convince you it's all your fault and this is
Right.
their planned solution for you because they're lazy and they're ineffective. Right. So we did a trial in this company I told you about. We tracked, we didn't do a trial, but we tracked the weight loss of the average participant. And we beat Ozempic. We beat these drugs.
Wow.
Right. We got 12% weight loss at 6 months, 18% at a year. Right.
That's great.
Yeah, it's huge. Right. And so we're going to publish this. We published the first round not too long ago. We're going to publish this. But like this can be done. You know, it's not far off. It just takes.
And without 4,000 side effects.
Yeah, I mean, look, everything's got a side effect, man. Listening to me is pretty irritating. So yeah,
it is, but I'll take that one. It's fine. I can always just shut you off if I have to. It's fine. I can deal with that. No problem.
So
I'll just do that if I want to.
There's always a side effect, but you know, look, the bottom line is it's less expensive and it's potentially more durable, right?
Well, let me bring that piece up, right? This is a piece that I think is that people bring up often, and there's some truth to it. It can be expensive to eat well, right? It can be expensive to get the grass-fed beef you should get. It can be expensive to get the better, vegetables that are going to be more nutritious. It can be expensive to eat that way. It's processed food's cheap, right? And it's fast. So it can be expensive. It also can take time. You got to cook. Like I prepare my own meals. I prepare my own salads. And it takes time, right? A whole lot easier to go to McDonald's now or get it delivered from the guy next door. It is a lot easier. So it takes time and money. But I would argue, this is just, and I think you agree with me.
Well, no, I'm going to tell you, it's not expensive. It's not expensive.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I did an experiment where my goal was to spend $10 a day on food, which is the SNAP benefit. So I'm sure you know the SNAP benefits, about SNAP benefits in New York.
Yep.
Average SNAP benefits in New York are about $10. This is like food stamps, guys. Mm-hmm. So I said, can I do a low carb diet for $10 a day? Okay. It takes some work, but it can be done. Okay. You can go to McDonald's. You can get quarter-pound hamburger patties for $1.50. You can get a pound of meat for about $6. Okay. So which means you got $4 to spend on something else. You can get tuna on sale. You can get canned chicken on sale. You can get, ground meat, family packs of ground meat. You could get, nobody wants liver. Okay. You can cook liver. It's so nutritious. You could cook liver. You could slow cook. You could take literally the cheapest.
You're not wrong.
Meat.
You're not wrong.
You could take the cheapest meat. And I did this. You could take the cheapest meat, put it in a slow cooker for like 12 hours. And it comes out so tender and it comes out so good. You could take heart. You could take, you could put whatever piece of meat you want in there, and it's so nutritious. Believe it or not, it's probably more nutritious than the meat you get on the shelf. You could get $1.99 a pound meat, put in the slow cooker. Chicken thighs, drumsticks, they're $1 a pound. You can do it. You can get frozen berries. You can get frozen vegetables for about $1 a pack. So I did it for a month. Okay, $10. It can be done. It's hard as hell.
It is hard. Yes, it is hard. Yeah. Most people aren't going to do that. So therefore it's expensive. That's my point. They aren't going to do that, right? They're not going to. If they're going to eat cheap, they're going to eat McDonald's. If they're going to eat cheap.
$1.50 a patty. That's what I'm saying. You go to McDonald's, $1.50 for a quarter-pound hamburger patty. You can't beat that. Anywhere in the country, I got no stock in McDonald's. Okay, I got no stock in them. Okay. But you can get a pound of meat for $6. Okay, you can get a side of pickles, a side of lettuce. They'll throw it on. They won't charge you. A cup of water, and you just got a pound of meat for $6. That's cheap.
Yes. However, if you want to eat well, you want to get higher quality meat, right? If you want to eat well, you want to get higher quality meat.
Yeah.
I said eating well, right? Not just eating cheap.
Yeah.
I'm saying if you want to get higher quality vegetables, you don't just want to get the GMO vegetable that's in the pocket. You want to get higher quality vegetables if you want to.
Yeah.
That's expensive. That's not cheap. You want a grass-fed beef here in New York City? It's like $10, $12 a pound.
Yeah. So you can't, yes, 100%. If you want to get to the ideal, which would be non-GMO, organic, vegetables, particularly anything that doesn't have a peel. So if you have a peel, you could probably get away with, not really getting things. But if you're eating the entire thing, so like berries or anything like that, you really want to not get stuff that's been sprayed on and has a whole bunch of chemicals on it.
Absolutely.
So 100%, I think you're right. But
here's my point, though. I want to walk down my point, if I will.
Yeah. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
I rarely have to spend money on medical bills. I rarely have to spend money on other things. If you eat well, you do save money on other things. I don't spend much. I don't spend money on prescription drugs. I don't spend money on. I rarely need to take an aspirin. Nothing. Like I rarely have to spend money on other things. So I do think that you can save money in the long run on other things. But more importantly, if I save my health, I can do more things and have more fun in my life. And also don't get my foot chopped off like you're talking about. I get to go hiking and running and all the things that I want to do. So yes, it can be expensive. However, I think there's a payoff. That was my point I was trying to make.
100%. Asthma, you're not going to be paying copays for visits to the doctors as much. You're not going to be paying copays at the pharmacy. I mean, there's data showing that it improves migraines. You're not going to be popping ibuprofen. There's data showing that it improves asthma. You're not going to be pumping that inhaler as much. Look, bottom line is, you're right. It's an investment. It's an investment in your health. Bottom line is anybody could do it at any budget. We even built into our app several things on like, how do you get it on the cheap? How do you get it on the go? Right? Like, how do you eat well on the go? We have literally every restaurant you can imagine listed with exactly what you're going to order. Right. So all you got to do is go to the app and you go eating on the go. And then boom, you have like what to do at any restaurant. You have, how to eat on a budget. So if times are tough and the Biden inflation plan isn't working for you, we have a way that you can sort of, am I allowed to talk about that?
All you want. No worries. Yes.
Biden's
my savior. I think he's going to save us all. I'm kidding, obviously.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely.
So if the Biden inflation plan isn't working for you, we have a thing on how to eat on a budget. And, we realize times are tough for a lot of people. So those little tips, just to save here and there at the supermarket, they're really helpful. We had a seminar on our app 2 weeks ago on exactly how to do that, how to shop smart, how to shop, how to shop the sales, how to do that. We're really trying to get this accessible and easy for anybody on any budget so they can get healthy. Yeah, somebody mentioned Aldi's right there. Aldi's is a great place to go shopping to find those like particular sales.
There we go. The Libertarian JRT says Aldi and Brie has Brie and other cheeses for 4 to 6 or 8 ounces. You can get $4 for 6 or 8 ounces. You can get hamburger for $5 a pound. So there we go.
So here's the thing. McDonald's has got you beat. They're $6 a pound cooked. Okay, $6 a pound cooked. Okay?
There we go.
So McDonald's has got you beat.
There we go. And he also says he can buy 36 eggs for way cheap. Also, too, I usually get the bigger ones because I eat a lot of eggs. I'm 4 eggs a day, so I eat a lot of eggs. I completely agree. Yes. So I guess where I wanna go here is there. I want to wrap it up. Is there anything that I've missed? Something that we should have talked about that I didn't talk about?
No, I mean, look, I think the biggest thing is, if you look, I was at a local community event, right? And we had, my area, Rockland County, it's sort of like a mixed area, some Republicans, some Democrats. And there's a community event. And I noticed, the whole community got together. There was about, 100, maybe 200 people in a room talking to Mike Lawler and some other, Teresa Kenny.
A large Hasidic Jewish community there too.
Yeah, there's a big community of Jews there. Absolutely. And, in my area, I just wanted to see what people are talking about. I brought my 11-year-old son. I wanted him to meet the politicians and, just to like shake hands. My 11-year-old son has a campaign to end Meatless Mondays. So I was like, look, you want to have this campaign to end Meatless Mondays, you got to talk to your, politicians, figure out how you're going to do it.
Yep.
So, we go there and I'm listening to everybody's complaints and a bunch of people are giving complaints and, all everybody's talking about is like the potholes, the street lighting. And I'm thinking to myself, like, somebody, they were talking about a hotel that's vacant that they want to, get somebody to develop. And I'm looking around the room. I'm like, the entire room has, obesity, diabetes. I mean, you could just see it. Like people are suffering. There was a lot of people with canes and handicap, right? And just, I don't know what cause these things. I don't know what their individual scenarios are, but just thought it hit me like our health is so important. Everybody deserves health, right?
Yes.
We deserve to be healthy. We deserve to have a way, a path.
The potholes don't matter if I can't get out of my house to drive.
Bingo, bingo. And I just thought to myself, like, we have a suffering world. For the first time in over 50 years, as far back as we've been tracking, our year over year, our life expectancy has dropped in the United States.
Yes.
So our society is suffering. The health is suffering. Our mental health is suffering. Our youth are suffering. Every age group we look at is dying more.
Yep.
Okay? And we just need to keep our eye on the prize, which is, our health, right? Our health first. And we're not going to can't defend liberty if you can't defend, right?
Totally correct.
So
absolutely.
I'm a big believer in get health. So it saddened me because not that I didn't think the issues of the potholes don't matter, but it struck me that, we really have to get back to basic values.
Well, no, that it wasn't a priority, right? The issue is potholes matter. Of course they do. But health should be first. Potholes should be way lower on the list, is all I'm saying, right? I think potholes are important. They're just not number one. Make them like number 10 or 12 or something. It's fine, right? That's all I'm saying.
Look, it struck me that I think we're just lost. We're just lost. Like here you have, all these politicians here, people that can, really make change. And what happened to health? What happened to our health is suffering and we are dying. So that's my thing.
I got to tell you, I am, and I was then, and I still am now. I'm the only politician in all of New York State. I'm not even making this up. It's not an exaggeration. Who talks constantly about happiness. I talk about it all the time. I have people like you on my show. No other politician does shit like this. It's just me, right? I'm the only one who's saying, I want happy New Yorkers. I want healthy New Yorkers. I want people to want to be here and to enjoy the state so they stay here. If they stay here and they live long and retire here, everybody's happy, right? That makes people happy. If they're happy and they stay here, we got more people here. We can have less taxes because more people paying. So everybody wins if we are healthy and happy. And politicians instead yell about culture war stuff that has no real value to anybody in reality here in New York State. And we're packing up and leaving left and right. It's true. So I appreciate you, Dr. Tro, for coming on. I really do. And guys, if you're listening or watching, whatever you're doing, do me a favor, follow Dr. Tro on Twitter at Dr. Tro, spelled out DOCTORTRO, or just check him out in the description. All his links are there. Check those out if you want to. All good. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for this evening. I am off for a couple of days. I'm going to be off running around New York State for the next 3 days. I'm doing a training in New York City. I'll be back sometime on Monday. Until then, I will see you all